One thing is for sure, I can't recall a Prime Minister in recent memory sacrificing Diwali to spend it with victims of a national disaster. So Mr. Modi's decision to visit Srinagar tomorrow is unique and for many commendable. But there are others who are questioning his motives. Is he being political? Should he have chosen Eid instead? So tonight we ask, are these questions legitimate or unwarranted? My guests are BJP spokesperson Sampit Patra, PDP spokesperson Samir Kaul, Congress spokesperson Salman Soz, the former Chief Information Commissioner and a former Divisional Commissioner Kashmir, Wajahat Habibullah, and one of the Kashmir interlocutors appointed by the outgoing Manmohan Singh government, Radha Kumar. Samir Kaul, when the Prime Minister announced he would spend Diwali in Srinagar, your spokesperson Naeem Akhtar said, and I'm quoting, "It would have been more encouraging if he had celebrated Eid with the people after the floods. Most people here celebrate Eid rather than Diwali." Isn't that a rather churlish and mean-spirited response?
No, I quite agree with you that maybe it wasn't the exact. I think what he was trying to convey could have been conveyed in some other manner. Like, for instance, if the Prime Minister of this country decides to share the warmth of the glow of Diwali with the suffering millions in Kashmir, then what better idea and what better occasion can there be, is what I say. And that's what my party believes. And I think it's a fantastic time to meet people who have been through huge losses, where their livelihoods have been hit, and where whatever they had campaigned for the whole of your life, they've lost. I think it's a fantastic idea to spend this time with them, because if you have the assurance right from the top, because the state government, as you know, is a dead state government. But if the central government and the top man of the government comes and says that I'm there for you and I'm going to help you, and this reassurance is coming right from the top, what better can it be?
You know, I applaud you. I applaud you for distancing yourself from your party spokesperson Naeem Akhtar. I just want to confirm, you're therefore saying to me that your party doesn't endorse Naeem Akhtar's churlish, mean-spirited response. Your party's position is to welcome the Prime Minister, not to question why he's going.
Absolutely, and I am very clear on that. Perhaps what Mr. Akhtar wanted to say was that Eid is a much better, much wider, much larger celebrated occasion in Kashmir. It would have been I think that's not a bad idea too, to have come and have had the idea of coming and sharing Eid with them there, because that's what the majority festival is.
All right,
but the important thing is that people have been locked inside doors.
Yeah, but the important thing is you're distancing yourself from Naeem Akhtar.
Security.
No, before let's not get confused. The important thing is you're distancing yourself and your party from the way Naeem Akhtar phrased himself. Can you confirm that with a quick yes?
Well, let me reiterate again what I said, that it's not a bad idea. It's magnanimous of him to have thought of, if the motive is to act in the spirit of the festival, spend that, and it is in the spirit of that festival to share it with people who have recently suffered unprecedentedly, then it is a jolly good idea.
All right, that's crystal clear. Let's leave it there. That's crystal clear. That's crystal clear. Wajahat Habibullah, let me put something else to you. Diwali is a public holiday. It's a major religious festival. Even if it isn't special for Muslims, it is for a lot of Hindus who work for the government, who are part of the army, and more importantly, it's also quite important for many Sikhs. Now, the Prime Minister's visit on Diwali Day will disturb their Diwali celebrations. Given that he could have gone one day earlier or one day later, was it right for him to go on Diwali?
Well, you see, he's going there for the Kashmiris, and Diwali is not really a major festival either for the Kashmiri Muslims or for the Kashmiri Pandits. For the Kashmiri Pandits, the major festival is, of course, Shivratri. But I think that, Prime Ministers, I think you're a bit missing the point. Prime Ministers don't really have holidays. He had a time off. He's gone to address the needs of the people of Kashmir who have suffered. And I think it's generous of him to go there and talk to them. I wouldn't agree that, the state government has disappeared altogether. I've just come back from Kashmir myself today. I was with them. I had meetings with the members of the state government, the commissioner, the deputy commissioner of Pulwama and others. They are all working on the job. Yes, in the first few days, they were pulverized. The word you used
Let's stick to the Prime Minister. This discussion is about the Prime Minister, not the state government. You're saying that the argument I'm presenting to you, that the PM should have chosen to go a day before or a day after, but not on Diwali, because he will disrupt the Diwali celebrations of the Hindus who have to come and greet him. You're saying that argument doesn't work with you.
As I said, the Diwali celebrations are not a major festival of the Kashmiris, either Pandit or Muslim. To some extent, yes, the Sikhs, but it's not a major festival of the Sikhs either. So his going there on this particular day is a good gesture, and it's a welcome gesture. What is important is what will come out of it.
Well, we'll come to that in a moment's time. We'll come to what comes out of it in a moment's time. Radha Kumar, let me pursue this argument the opposite way with you. The Prime Minister is making, I would say, a very important gesture by sacrificing his own Diwali to be with people who have suffered, to show them sympathy and to show them support. To be honest, I don't recall any other Prime Minister or any other politician in recent memory doing something similar. Would you say, therefore, that regardless of the suspicions and motives that people may attribute, this is a commendable thing to do?
Yes, absolutely. I think it is a really significant and important gesture. And let me say, he's not going there to celebrate a festival, as I understand it. He's going there to show solidarity and sympathy for the suffering that people have undergone. And Diwali is supposed to be a day when good luck should come to you. And the Kashmiris have suffered a great deal over these past few months, not just the floods, but also the tensions on the line of control and so on.
Okay.
So to go, to be with them and to talk about the need for good luck to come their way is important.
In which case, Salman Soz, I want to remind you of what your colleague, a former minister, now an MP, Shashi Tharoor, has tweeted. He questioned whether the Prime Minister's visit is related to the fact that elections are due in Kashmir just in a couple of weeks, possibly. Does Congress believe that the Prime Minister's visit is somehow part of the BJP's Mission 44 campaign?
Karan, first, the Prime Minister is welcome to Kashmir. He can celebrate Diwali wherever he wants. He's celebrating it in Kashmir and saying that he wants to express solidarity. That is, welcome. At the same time, I think what is most important to us in the Congress party and for the people of Jammu and Kashmir is what is the result going to be.
Well, we'll come to the results in a moment's time. Salman Soz, we'll come to the results in a moment. Just a moment. Let's take this step by step. I'll come to the results in a moment's time. I'm first talking about people's suspicions and doubts or the attribution of motives to the Prime Minister's visit. Does Congress endorse Shashi Tharoor's tweet that it would have been better if this visit hadn't coincided with elections? Does Congress believe that this visit is part of BJP's campaign Mission 44?
No. Look, the thing is that there are people who say that this may be related to elections, but what I am telling you on behalf of the party is that we are interested in seeing what will be the result, because Mr. Modi
we'll come to the results in a moment's time. You're not answering my question.
Listen to me.
Answer my question and I will listen to you.
He's given to symbolism, and this could be symbolic as well. What we want are not talks. What we don't want talk, we want action. And that is what is most important to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And we'll get to that point when you ask me that.
It seems by sidestepping my question but insisting on saying you'd only view the outcome in terms of the results, what you're really saying is this: that if there are good results, you'll believe it was a sincere visit. If there are no results, you'll believe it is a political visit and part of Mission 44. Because that's how I interpret your answer.
That is the correct way to interpret my answer. Yes.
All right, we're back on the same wavelength, which is excellent. Sambit Patra, then how do you respond to two sorts of skepticisms that have been expressed? Not so strongly by Samir Kaul, who said that he distances himself from Naeem Akhtar, but nonetheless, it would have been a good idea for the PM to have gone there in Eid because Eid matters more. And then there is a much stronger skeptical opinion from Salman Soz, who says that he and his party will decide whether this is politically motivated or not, depending upon the outcome. If there are good outcomes, it will be a sincere visit. If there aren't, it will have been deemed to be political. How do you respond to that?
Karan, first and foremost, I would like to begin by saying that a controversy should not be made out of an issue which is such a welcome step. I mean, like, to have a sensible Prime Minister, to have a sensitive Prime Minister who stands in solidarity with a part of a state which has suffered the worst flood in 100 years of its history, I think is a sensitive as well as a sensible step that the Prime Minister is moving towards. And here let me go back to the history. Karan, you had raised a point that you don't remember any other politician who would have done so in his lifetime. But I remember one, and that is one Mr. Narendra Modi when he was the Chief Minister of Gujarat. Bhuj had earthquake, and then Mr. Narendra Modi, who was new as the Chief Minister of Gujarat, had gone and spent the Diwali in Bhuj there. There were no elections which were to come up in Gujarat then. He was just a new Chief Minister, yet with whole of his cabinet and with all the bureaucrats who mattered, he had gone to Bhuj, he had spent time there, and he had seen to it that the things were back on track in Bhuj. So it's not out of gaining something that the Prime Minister is doing.
You're right,
this.
Sambit.
All I'll
point out is that elections in 2002 were just 7-8 months away from the Diwali of 2001 that you're talking about, and in fact the elections were delayed by 2 months. They would have actually, if they'd happened on time, happened sooner. So you can't say there were no elections, but they weren't as immediate as the elections in Kashmir. But I take your broader point. I want to pick up, Samir Kaul, on something that in a sense has been half said by Sambit Patra. Isn't it the case that everything a Prime Minister does, be it Narendra Modi, be it a Congress Prime Minister or a National Front Prime Minister, everything a Prime Minister does, or for that matter everything a leader of the opposition does, will always be at least party political? Does that necessarily detract from what they're doing? Is it necessary to say, because it's partly political, therefore it's suspicious and dubious?
Well, I don't think that's the correct attitude to have if any party has that attitude, because what is there on the ground, we look at it the PDP looks at it very, very clearly as someone who has been trained with calamities in Bhuj and who knows exactly how to handle things, and his suggestions and whatever, and his presence, and is able to mingle with people, horticulturists, tourism sector, small businessmen who have lost their livelihoods at this juncture in Kashmir will come in handy. I can't see why it shouldn't come in handy. All I'm saying is, as a word of caution, and if there is any other motive, and if in fact this be a ploy for some future elections, then perhaps it's something which is not in order. But we're looking at it at face value, and we feel that he's most welcome.
Good, thank you. Vijay Habibullah, is there another sort of argument that you could make that the Prime Minister's visit on Diwali is deliberately chosen because he wants to draw attention back to the devastation Kashmir suffered, which today, sadly, is not a priority for many people. It's no longer even an issue of major concern outside the state. The press, for instance, has virtually forgotten the subject and no longer discusses it. So by visiting the state and choosing Diwali to do so, is the Prime Minister, you could argue, restoring that lost focus, which is in many ways something essential to do?
There is much in what you say, because as I said, I've just come back from Srinagar just now, an hour ago, and there has been a lot of criticism. The last 2 or 3 days I heard a lot of criticism of the government of India for not having done enough in responding to then of course the government of India said that they had not received a proposal, so on and so forth. But the answer was that so many announcements were made with regard to Andhra, so many announcements were made with regard to other places where there have been these calamities, but not so far as Kashmir is concerned. I think his going there is a measure of reassurance. As I said, it is not a major festival so far as the Kashmiris are concerned. The message that goes out is that on a holiday which he could have spent in some other way, he has chosen to spend it with a certain part of our country which has suffered very badly in
Can I ask you this?
But he's brought focus back. He's bringing focus back to that, and also I think seeking to reassure the people that no, the government of India is with them and the government of India is looking towards their benefit.
I take your point.
I think
Can I interrupt?
Somewhat reassuring.
Can I interrupt and put this to you? If people are going to judge the ultimate sincerity of this visit in terms of the outcomes, and I'm sure outcomes are not just important to Congress, they're probably very important to the Kashmiris, because that's why they welcome the visit. They want to see outcomes. Now, as someone who's just returned, can you name the top 3 outcomes that the Prime Minister needs to ensure follow from his visit? Just the top 3, quickly.
Well, the rehabilitation primarily. What is going to be done about the rehabilitation? The relief works are now almost complete. Basically, what are the measures that are going to be taken for the rehabilitation? Basically, that is the thing, and whatever stems from that. What is going to be done about the rehabilitation? What is going to be done about the restoration of normal life in the valley? This is, I think, what they will be looking for. But the fact that you're saying that they're welcoming it with great enthusiasm, I'm afraid they're not really. There's a good deal of skepticism still. The point of view that I was expressing is that from the point of view of the Prime Minister, it is in his interest, not only in his interest, in the interest of the government of India, to reassure the people that no, government is with them. But at present, what the attitude of the people is that, well, you see, he's coming, but we don't know whether anything is going to really come out of it or if it's only a gesture.
And that one can understand. They want to see the outcomes.
Said that there have to be outcomes.
Let me put this to you, Radha Kumar. People are always willing to be skeptical and cynical and doubting and suspicious of Mr. Modi in particular, politicians in general. But am I justified in saying I'm putting that to Radha Kumar actually. Am I right, Radha Kumar, in saying that I don't recall in living memory any other Indian Prime Minister doing something similar on a festival like Diwali or Christmas or Eid, choosing deliberately to spend it with those who've suffered to give them sympathy and support? Does that make Mr. Modi unique, as I suggested in my introduction, or am I wrong in finding that as something novel and special? I'm inviting you to point out I'm wrong, if I am.
Well, no, I think you're right, but if you're wrong, then I'm wrong along with you. Having said that, it's really important that this doesn't go as merely a gesture, and that the follow-up in terms of rehabilitation, as Wajahat has pointed out, is also seen to be free and fair, especially that it should be free of nepotism of any sort whatsoever. And I do feel that it's very important to have a regular monitoring mechanism to make sure that there is adequate rehabilitation. Alongside, I would say that if there's one thing that is needed, it is some attempt to pick up a peace process.
Oh, well, we'll come to the peace process later. That's not part of this visit, so let's not try and confuse issues by bringing in something that's actually extraneous. I want to come back to you, Salman Soz. You said that I had correctly understood you when I said you will deem this to be a sincere visit if there are good outcomes and only political if there aren't. What are the top 3 outcomes Congress is looking for? Can you specify what are the top 3 tasks Mr. Modi should address so that you at the end are convinced this was a meaningful, successful visit?
Look, Karan, very quickly. First, tomorrow Mr. Modi is definitely going to make a major announcement of some sort, because I think he loves grand gestures, and I think that is going to happen tomorrow. It happened on September 7th when he visited. He not only talked about helping Kashmir, he also talked about helping Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Now, that was all very well. There was 1,000 crores announced,
and then he left. Let's not become polemical, Salman. I'm asking you to suggest what you think are the 3 outcomes which you believe will determine the success.
I will tell you. I will tell you. If you, one has to give comparisons. Uttarakhand 2013, within 2 weeks of the Prime Minister's visit, there were national and international experts on the ground from the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, doing a disaster kind of post-disaster
so you want the same thing in Kashmir. Number 2. What's number 2?
That has not happened in Kashmir so
what's
far.
Number 2? I understand. We're short of time. What's number 2?
Second. For 1 month, thousands upon thousands of homes were inundated, and there was no dewatering done, and the government of India could have done a lot more. Now, because those homes have been damaged, whose responsibility is it but the J&K government and the government of India?
So the second thing is dewatering. Please be specific. Please be specific. If the first thing is the first thing you say is you want international experts and rehabilitation teams, the second thing is you say you want dewatering. What's the third? What's the third?
International and national.
What's the third?
Rehabilitation and restoration of livelihoods. What will happen to those people who've lost agricultural land or horticultural land? Or, all these things are very important to people. We need a credible plan, and we need a monitorable plan. We need to keep an eye on these things, and we must have a roadmap for this.
You spelled out what you want. I've reduced you to the specifics. I didn't want you to get lost in parliamentary or political polemics. I'm going to put one of those to Sambit Patra. Sambit Patra, this is something the Kashmiris themselves have picked up and remarked upon. Why is international aid not being permitted? Why is international support and rehabilitation teams not being permitted? After all, as you heard Salman Soh say, they played a critical role in Uttarakhand and in bringing that state back to normalcy very quickly. Why is that not being
Gujarat,
permitted?
By the way,
that's to Sambit Patra.
Other places too.
That's to Sambit Patra. Why is international assistance and aid not being permitted? And will the Prime Minister, when he goes and sees the devastation, permit that?
Karan, most importantly, we are all aware of the fact, including my good friend Salman Soh, that the state government was a total failure.
Now, answer my question.
No,
Let's
I'm
not be
answering your
polemical with
question.
each
I'm
other.
answering your question. Was total failure, and the kind of rehabilitation and relief work that we have seen in Jammu and Kashmir is all thanks to the central government.
You've got
It has
that off
really
your
worked
chest. Now
hard.
answer my question,
Now, why
please.
do we want to? Why do we want to open up the whole issue to the international world? Are we not, as a nation, capable of protecting one state of ours? Are we not capable as India to see to it that rehabilitates
So this is a
one
question
state
of national
ours?
pride, is
Yes.
it?
I
National
believe
pride
as
is
an
more
Indian,
important than the rehabilitation of people who have suffered and lost everything. You somehow believe that even if there are areas where we can't do it ourselves, nonetheless we must struggle to do so, deny ourselves the help and assistance from those who have better experience and
no,
better
definitely we will not
methods.
deny. Definitely we would not deny, we should not deny anyone who has better expertise than us. But will anyone over here on the panel agree to the fact that we have less expertise?
Well, let me
I
bring in
believe
Bajaj
India has the
Habibullah.
best
Very quickly, I'm going to stop you. I'm
Yes.
going to bring in Bajaj Habibullah.
Why
Bajaj
did you get
Habibullah,
expertise
you have to
from
answer in
Gujarat?
30
I want
seconds
to-
because I'm out of time. Do we
Why
need
did
to
we
bring
get
in
it from Gujarat
international
earthquake?
expertise, or is Mr. Modi and Sambit Patra, who's arguing, right to say we don't need it? A quick answer and a short one.
Sorry, I couldn't get your question.
Are we right to deny international expertise the right to come to Kashmir? A quick answer, please, because we're out of time.
No, of course you will require international expertise, but you have to identify exactly what you need the expertise for. There is a lot of domestic expertise available, and that also has to be marshaled. In fact, what I was doing the last 3 years was in fact doing that, trying to put together, weaving together inputs from different
I'm going to have to stop you.
to go
We're
ahead
running
with the
out of time.
rehabilitation
It's
plan.
Diwali night and I can't afford to run out of time on this night more than on any other. But the point that you made, which I'll emphasize, is that we must use international expertise where we need it, but we need to identify where we need it, and maybe that identification is one of the tasks the Prime Minister can facilitate by going and by assuring that he brings his administrative focus sharply to that question. My thanks to all my guests for joining me, and a very, very happy Diwali to all of you. Have a terrific celebration.